Let's see if I can explain to you why the intuition between that maximum happiness point. So suppose the consumer, instead of being at a tangent point, was at this point, let's call that point A, in which the slope of the budget line is actually more than the slope of the, I'm sorry, the slope of the indifference curve is actually more than the slope of the budget line. So let's make up some numbers. So let's suppose that the prices was px equal 1 and py equals 1. So that will give us a slope of the budget line of 1. And let's suppose that, and that will be across all the budget line. But let's suppose that at that point A, the marginal rate of substitution was actually 2. So that will be consistent with that point. Remember that this is minus 2, this is minus 1. That will be consistent with that point in which the marginal rate of substitution, the slope of the indifference curve, is actually steeper than the slope of the budget line. So what is happening? Well, this consumer is willing to trade 2 units of y for 1 unit of x and remain equally happy. Now, if the consumers did that, would the consumer be able to save money? Definitely, because the consumer can actually give away 2 units of y, make $2, and then use only one of those dollars to buy an additional x. So that's a good deal. Now, another way of thinking about it is that at that point, the consumer can give away 2y, use only $1 of those $2 that is saved on the units of y that he doesn't have to buy anymore, buy 2x instead. So therefore, the consumer can increase the consumption of x by 2 while actually saving money in that transaction. So the consumer can actually be happier by consuming a little bit more x and less y. So essentially, what we're saying is that this consumer should in fact do that because it will increase his happiness, which means that the consumer will move to an indifference curve that is to the right. So what's happening is that if the consumer was at a point like A that is tangent, there's not tangent and it's above the tangency point, the consumer is just buying too much y, and the consumer can actually be happier by consuming a little more x and less y. If the consumer was down here at a point below the tangent point, let's say C, then the consumer is essentially buying too much x, and the consumer could be happier by shifting some of this consumption from x to y and actually able to achieve better, more happiness for his money. So that's kind of the intuition behind the idea that the consumer is definitely going to be the happiest at a tangent point between the indifference curve and the budget line.